Colleagues, Mr. Chair, thank you for that very kind introduction. It's truly an honour to be here today representing the Royal Australian Navy and the Australian Government. Let me just start by saying that my government is strongly committed to IORA, and we commend the Indian government for its efforts to build on IORA's strong track record, and we offer thanks for hosting this meeting. On a personal note, it's also a great pleasure to be in New Delhi. I've only ever been to India once, and that was in Goa when I was a young sub-lieutenant on board one of our ships. That was in 1985, and it's an MDA story insofar as that when we sailed, there was two ships, and it was the height of the Cold War, and we were looking for a Russian task group, and we were out there for about four long weeks. I can remember it quite well, and we thought this is too hard, so we decided to go alongside, and we're going to Port Louis in the Mauritius. And when we got alongside, there was two Russian mod Kashins sitting alongside. So we didn't know that. So there's an example. There's an example of MDA, common operating pictures, and I think you could even argue that plus ça change, some things never change. So in my naval career and as Director of the Sea Power Centre Australia, I've enjoyed close professional and personal relations with officers of the Indian Navy and with Indian academic and policy institutions like the National Maritime Foundation, and it's wonderful to be here further deepening these ties. Now, before getting to the topic, and I understand this is the last session of the day, and it's been a long day, and I'm going to take more than 15 minutes because of my Australian drawl. I have to speak slower, right? There's an American in the room and he won't understand what I'm saying. All right, so before getting to the topic of inclusive maritime domain awareness, or MDA, I'd just like to say something about Australia and the Indian Ocean region. This ocean and region bears the name of our gracious hosts, but I'd like to emphasise that although the Indian Ocean does not bear my country's name, Australia's interests are nonetheless thoroughly intertwined with this great body of water. And in fact, your Foreign Secretary this morning mentioned this idea that we're all equal stakeholders, and I totally agree with that. But more to the point, just like India and other nations gathered here, Australia's prosperity and security depend on the good order at sea in the Indian Ocean. Now I'm going to go page down, is it? To go forward here? There we go. Perhaps the clearest measure of this is the map you see in this slide here. As the map illustrates, many of Australia's most important sea lines of communication traverse the Indian Ocean, and it isn't an overstatement to say that Australia's economy would be devastated without the safe and secure passage of shipping in the Indian Ocean. Australia's dependence on the Indian Ocean becomes even starker once one starts digging into the data a little bit more. So Australia's largest export by a huge margin is iron ore, Fe62, high-grade quality iron ore. It adds roughly 54 billion Australian dollars or 42 billion US dollars to the Australian economy each year, and accounts for more than 16% of the total value of Australia's combined goods and services exports. So what is especially striking is that the top 5 ports for exporting Australian iron ore are all in Western Australia and are all on or very near the Indian Ocean. So you have Port Hedland, you have Dampier, you have Geraldton, you have Fremantle, are all on the Indian Ocean, while Esperance is on the Southern Ocean but a short sail for the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean is nothing short of an economic lifeline for my country. But the importance of the Indian Ocean for Australia is just not about exports and the sea lines of communication. It is also at the heart of Australia's international responsibilities. Australia's Security Forces Authority Area, or the SFAA, which covers the same area as Australia's Search and Rescue region, is truly colossal. It's huge. The area of responsibility is nearly 53 million square kilometres and borders the search and rescue region of 10 other countries. So in fact, roughly 1/10 of the Earth's surface lies within Australia's vast Security Forces Authority area. So as this map illustrates, a huge portion of the Indian Ocean is covered by Australian Security Forces Authority area, and there are many more examples that could be explored. But I hope I've said enough to convince you that Australia is deeply invested in ensuring safety and security in this most important body of water. Now, the problem of silos. MDA is a relatively young concept. It was originally developed as recently as the late 1990s by the US Coast Guard. But despite its relative newness, MDA is, as everyone in this room understands, is essential. We need to protect national security. We need to facilitate commercial shipping. We need to ensure that navies can safely interact, and much besides. Now, without a clear picture of the maritime domain, we would all suffer. Just to give you a few examples, without MDA, shipping lanes are vulnerable to piracy and accident. Maritime borders are easily compromised, and essential maritime resources and industries are endangered. But despite the importance of MDA for all manner of activities on and below the ocean surface, achieving reliable MDA is an ongoing struggle for individual nations and the international community. Great strides in the technological realm have improved and will continue to enhance MDA, both domestically and internationally. Here I'm thinking of tools, Mr. Chair, like autonomous unmanned aerial vehicles or unmanned systems, and the networks of surface and subsurface sensors. So these technologies are emerging as powerful tools for monitoring these vast areas of ocean without the need for large and very costly, as you mentioned, personal footprint. But even as technology improves, as it will, harnessing the full benefits of MDA depends on crucial human links. In particular, institutional silos at both the domestic and the international level can leave the full power of MDA unused. Here's the nub of the issue really. Unless institutional barriers are broken down and information is shared more readily, many of the potential benefits of MDA will remain out of reach to us. So in other words, reaping the rewards of MDA is only possible when those that need to know actually know. So a particular government agency in a particular country might have a good MDA of a region in which a fishing vessel's navigation pattern is suspicious, pattern of life. But unless the relevant information is shared with other government agencies and departments and with other nations, efforts to ensure safety and security at sea will be hampered. So we therefore need to work not just to build the technical MDA capabilities, but to make MDA more inclusive. So Australia's extensive experience with the benefits of inclusive MDA. Indeed, Australia's status as an island continent has made inclusive MDA an absolute imperative. So Australia has a vast maritime domain. Its exclusive economic zone is the third largest in the world and covers more than 8 million square kilometres. To this, we can add responsibility for waters off Australia's Antarctic territory and the vast Security Forces Authority area that I've already mentioned. Now, to manage these massive maritime domains, Australia has had no choice but to adopt a thoroughly inclusive approach to MDA. MDA over such a large area would simply be impossible without extensive collaboration and information sharing among government, Australian government departments, agencies, and together with the private sectors. So Australia's inclusive approach to MDA is centred on Maritime Border Command. Maritime Border Command is an Australian government multi-agency operational authority. This means that Maritime Border Command is able to draw on a wide array of capabilities and partners from a range of Australian government departments and agencies. So Maritime Border Command is primarily a joint venture between the Australian Border Force and the Australian Defence Force. But Maritime Border Command also works with personnel from the Australian Fisheries Management Authority, the Department of Agriculture and Water Security, the Australian Maritime Safety Authority, and many other government, state and territory agencies. The multi-agency nature of Maritime Border Command means that it's able to employ a diverse range of assets. Now, the assets available to Maritime Border Command include, among other things, these commercial and military satellite imagery, contracted aircraft, Royal Australian Air Force Maritime Patrol aircraft. We've got a P3 there, but that seemed to look like a P8, and Army Regional Force Surveillance Unit patrols in Northern Australia. Now, the diversity of the assets used by Maritime Border Command is reflected in the diversity of the types and sources of information that actually feed into the MDA picture. Just to give you a taste, the Australian Maritime Safety Authority is the leading source of vessel tracking data. The Department of Immigration and Border Protection provides crew and passenger information. Intelligence data is sourced from intelligence agencies and the Australian Federal Police, and indeed also open sources. The Australian Fisheries Management Authority provides information sourced from independent vessel monitoring systems. Meanwhile, imagery from both commercial and military satellites is sourced and processed by the Australian Geospatial Intelligence Organisation. So through all of these and other sources, we, Australia, are able to develop an MDA picture that provides the best chance of achieving safety and security in its extensive maritime domains. Now, as the diverse composition of Maritime Border Command makes clear, MDA in Australia is inherently inclusive. So various sources of information feed into the creation of MDA, and a wide range of Australian government departments and agencies benefit from this shared information pool. So as a result, numerous Australian government departments and agencies are able to develop MDA in different arenas to serve different policy agendas. So what about inclusive MDA in the Indian Ocean region? So inclusive MDA in the IORA region is in the interest of all the nations gathered at this meeting. Most obviously, it will help ensure safety and security at sea and is therefore a precondition. It remains a precondition for good order at sea. But it will also protect livelihoods and protect economic growth, whether it's a matter of protecting fisheries from unsustainable fishing practices or reaping the potential of emerging sectors of the blue economy. MDA has an important role to play. Here I'd like to acknowledge some of the great work that our hosts are doing in this area. Now, India has made a significant investment in MDA. It has expanded its coastal radar network, developed its information management and analysis centre for MDA, and started an extensive awareness campaign across its fishing fleet of 250,000 vessels, which includes a commitment to fit transponders towards fishing vessels. The Indian Navy has also signed white shipping information sharing agreements with a growing list of countries, including the United States, with Singapore, and indeed only recently with Australia. The technical agreement on white shipping information signed with Australia back in 2015 has now been operationalised and is already significantly expanding bilateral MDA cooperation. So given these developments and the pre-existing multilateral MDA arrangements, the Indian Ocean region already has the building blocks in place to reap the benefits of more inclusive MDA. So as well as organisations like IORA and the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, the Indian Ocean region has a range of other bodies with the MDA dimension. These include search and rescue cooperation at the bilateral and multilateral level, the Indian Ocean Tuna Commission, which we've already discussed this morning, the Intergovernmental Coordination Group for Indian Ocean Tsunami Warning and Mitigation System, and the various regional centres, including those related to, for example, the Djibouti Code of Conduct and the Jeddah Amendment to the Djibouti Code of Conduct that recognises the importance of the blue economy and that aims to build national and regional capacity to address wider maritime security issues as a basis for substantial development of the maritime sector. So a prerequisite of achieving the potential benefits of inclusive MDA is building more information sharing, capacity building connections between these and similar bodies. So new MDA institutions, I would argue, are not necessarily needed in the Indian Ocean region, but new partnerships between existing institutions would be immensely beneficial. The IORA Action Plan of 2017-21 is to be applauded and is welcomed in this regard. The maritime security and safety stream of this action plan should allow all of us to leverage off existing institutions to improve MDA across the Indian Ocean region. The push to expand the MOU and search and rescue and eventually implement it is but one useful avenue for making MDA more inclusive. Another laudable long-term goal of the action plan is to explore a regional surveillance network based on existing member states' institutions and with a focus on data sharing. So this image gives you an idea of what an especially robust version of such a regional surveillance network might look like. Now, this proposal includes multilateral organisations and private sector actors as well as state institutions. Whatever its final configuration might be, the point is that with more information sharing and partnering, greater MDA benefits will flow to all countries in the Indian Ocean region. Now, I hope that our discussions at this meeting will add even more momentum to the implementation of the cooperative MDA aspects of the IORA action plan. The Indian Ocean region has many bodies and mechanisms involved in MDA. Our task now is to connect these bodies and mechanisms. So just in conclusion, no government agency, no multilateral forum or nation in the Indian Ocean has the ability to independently produce a comprehensive MDA picture. All of us need to partner to put together more pieces of the maritime puzzle. And as Ambassador Bagariat mentioned this morning, adopting international best practices and that which works and that which we know works is encouraged. Moreover, we need new and strengthened partnerships between domestic government departments and agencies. We need new and strengthened partnerships between the private sector and government. We need new and strengthened partnerships between countries at the bilateral level. And of course, we need new and strengthened partnerships between international organisations, multilateral bodies and nations at the multilateral level. As well as providing a tour of the Australian experience of inclusive MDA, I hope that this presentation serves as a call to arms to revitalise our efforts to partner on MDA internationally. And when we partner and share information, we might be tempted to see ourselves as giving away valuable data. I don't think that's the right way to look at inclusive approaches to MDA. When we partner on MDA, we receive far more than what we give. So information and inclusive MDA are not a charity. They really are about enlightened self-interest because they improve maritime safety and security for our own nation just as much as for others. IORA has a great potential to facilitate this partnering in the Indian Ocean, and this is in all our interests. I thank our host for driving forward the IORA agenda. I thank you for your attention and look forward to your questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Capt.